Imagine waking up one morning and noticing that your knees feel stiffer than they did a year ago. Your hands take longer to loosen up, your energy dips earlier in the afternoon, and that low-grade ache in your lower back seems to have settled in for good. You tell yourself it is just aging. Most people over 50 do. But what if that quiet stiffness and fatigue were being driven by something your body can actually influence every single day with one simple cup? Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the most common and least talked about forces behind the way many Americans feel as they move through their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The good news is that a carefully chosen daily cup can help calm that background fire without complicated routines or expensive supplements. Hello everyone, and welcome to Health Journey. Today we are going to talk about one practical cup that many adults over 50 are using to support healthier inflammation levels. This matters because low-grade inflammation tends to rise with age. It is linked to joint discomfort, slower recovery after activity, higher risk for heart concerns, and that general feeling of not quite bouncing back the way you used to. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institutes of Health both point to chronic inflammation as a quiet contributor to many of the conditions that become more common after midlife. The encouraging part is that everyday foods and drinks can gently influence the body's inflammatory pathways. No single cup is a miracle cure. What it can do is give your system consistent daily support while you also focus on sleep, movement, and the rest of your plate. Picture a 67-year-old man named Robert who lives outside of Columbus, Ohio. For years, he woke up with stiff fingers and a low backache that made getting out of bed the hardest part of his morning. He assumed it was simply the price of getting older. He still walked his imagine waking up one morning and noticing that your knees feel stiffer than they did a year ago. Your hands take longer to loosen up. Your energy dips earlier in the afternoon, and that low-grade ache in your lower back seems to have settled in for good. You tell yourself it is just aging. Most people over 50 do. But what if that quiet stiffness and fatigue were being driven by something your body can actually influence every single day with one simple cup? Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the most common and least talked about forces behind the way many Americans feel as they move through their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The good news is that a carefully chosen daily cup can help calm that background fire without complicated routines or expensive supplements. Hello everyone, and welcome to Health Journey. Today we are going to talk about one practical cup that many adults over 50 are using to support healthier inflammation levels. This matters because low-grade inflammation tends to rise with age. It is linked to joint discomfort, slower recovery after activity, higher risk for heart concerns, and that general feeling of not quite bouncing back the way you used to. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institutes of Health both point to chronic inflammation as a quiet contributor to many of the conditions that become more common after midlife. The encouraging part is that everyday foods and drinks can gently influence the body's inflammatory pathways. No single cup is a miracle cure. What it can do is give your system consistent daily support while you also focus on sleep, movement, and the rest of your plate. Picture a 67-year-old man named Robert who lives outside of Columbus, Ohio. For years, he woke up with stiff fingers and a low backache that made getting out of bed the hardest part of his morning. He assumed it was simply the price of getting older. He still walked his dog and did light yard work, but the discomfort was becoming the background noise of his day. One winter, his daughter suggested he try a simple warm cup every morning, made from ingredients already in most kitchens. Within 3 weeks, Robert noticed he was moving more easily when he first stood up. By 6 weeks, the afternoon fatigue had softened. He did not become 20 years younger overnight. He simply felt a little less held back by his own body. That kind of realistic improvement is what we are aiming for. Chronic inflammation is different from the short-term inflammation that helps you heal a cut or a sprained ankle. Short-term inflammation is helpful and temporary. Chronic low-grade inflammation stays turned on at a low level for months or years. It can be driven by excess body weight, poor sleep, high stress, a diet heavy in ultra-processed foods, and simply the passage of time. Over years, it can contribute to joint wear, blood vessel changes, and that general sense of slowing down. The American Heart Association and Mayo Clinic both emphasize that lifestyle patterns strongly influence this quiet process. That is why a daily habit that supports the body's natural anti-inflammatory pathways can be so useful. But here is what most people do not realize. You do not need a complicated protocol or a long list of exotic powders. One well-chosen cup each morning can deliver several compounds that research has linked to healthier inflammatory markers. The cup we are going to prepare uses turmeric, ginger, a pinch of black pepper, and warm water, or a splash of milk if you prefer. Turmeric contains curcumin, a plant compound that has been studied for its ability to help regulate inflammatory signaling in the body. Ginger contains gingerols that support similar pathways and also soothe digestion. Black pepper contains piperine, which dramatically improves how well the body absorbs curcumin. Together, they create a simple, inexpensive daily practice that many people over 50 find easy to keep. Here is exactly how to make it. Take 1 cup of hot water or warm unsweetened almond milk or regular milk if that is what you have. Add half a teaspoon of ground turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, or a thin slice of fresh ginger, and a small pinch of black pepper. Stir well. If you like a touch of sweetness, add a teaspoon of raw honey after the liquid has cooled slightly so the beneficial compounds are not damaged by high heat. Sip it slowly in the morning, ideally on an empty stomach or with a light breakfast. That is the entire habit. 5 minutes. Ingredients most grocery stores carry. Cost measured in pennies per day. Let me show you how this looks in real life. Imagine a 72-year-old woman named Elaine who lives in a small town in North Carolina. She had been dealing with morning stiffness in her hands and a general sense of inflammation that made her feel older than she wanted to feel. She started the turmeric ginger cup every morning while her coffee brewed. She kept the rest of her routine the same. After about 4 weeks, she noticed she could open jars more easily. After 2 months, she realized she was no longer reaching for over-the-counter pain relievers as often in the afternoon. The change was quiet and gradual, exactly the kind of progress that tends to last. Now let's talk about something even more important, why the combination matters more than any single ingredient. Curcumin on its own is poorly absorbed by the body. That is why so many people try turmeric and feel nothing. The small amount of black pepper changes the equation. Studies have shown that piperine can increase curcumin absorption by a large margin. Ginger adds its own anti-inflammatory compounds and makes the drink more soothing for the stomach. Warm liquid helps the ingredients disperse and makes the habit feel comforting, which is especially valuable on cold mornings or when joints feel stiff. This is not about mega doses. It is about consistent, gentle support that the body can use day after day. Stay with me because the next part is the one many people overlook. The cup works best when it is paired with a few other simple patterns that also influence inflammation. Sleep is one of the most powerful. When you regularly get fewer than 7 hours, inflammatory markers tend to rise. Protecting a consistent bedtime and keeping the bedroom cool and dark is one of the highest leverage things you can do. Movement matters too. You do not need intense exercise. A daily walk, gentle stretching, or light strength work with household items helps muscles and joints stay more resilient and can lower background inflammation over time. The food on the rest of your plate also counts. Colorful vegetables, berries, fatty fish a couple of times a week, and olive oil all supply additional compounds that work in the same direction as the morning cup. What happens next may surprise you. Many people expect dramatic overnight results and then feel discouraged when the change is gradual. Real improvement in inflammatory tone usually shows up as better morning mobility, steadier energy, and less reliance on temporary relief measures. It is not unusual for someone to notice the first small difference around the 3-week mark and a clearer shift by 6 to 8 weeks. That timeline matches how the body actually adapts. Cells and signaling pathways do not rewrite themselves in a weekend. They respond to repeated, consistent input. So what should you actually do starting tomorrow? Measure out the turmeric, ginger, and black pepper the night before if that makes the morning easier. Keep a small jar of the mixed spices next to the kettle. When you wake up, heat the water or milk, stir in the spices, and sip while you look out the window or listen to the news. If the taste is too earthy at first, start with a smaller amount of turmeric and build up over a week or 2. If you take blood-thinning medication or have gallbladder issues, check with your doctor before making turmeric a daily habit, because it can have mild blood-thinning effects in higher amounts. For most healthy adults, the culinary doses used in this cup are well tolerated. I want to speak for a moment to the emotional side of living with low-grade inflammation. Many people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s quietly accept stiffness and fatigue as inevitable. They stop doing the activities they once enjoyed because the recovery feels harder. That slow narrowing of life is painful in a way that goes beyond physical discomfort. A simple daily cup will not erase every ache. What it can do is give your body a consistent signal that you are supporting its natural repair systems. Over time, that support often translates into more comfortable movement and a greater willingness to stay active. That willingness itself becomes part of the solution. Let me give you one more real-life picture. A 64-year-old retired teacher named Diane in Oregon had been dealing with what she called old hands. Her fingers felt swollen in the morning, and typing or gardening became less enjoyable. She began the turmeric ginger cup and also made a point of walking after dinner most evenings. Within a month, she noticed she could garden for longer without the same level of discomfort afterward. She told her sister that the biggest change was not the absence of every ache, but the return of confidence that her body could still do the things she loved. That kind of quiet restoration is worth pursuing. Here is a short summary of what we have covered. Chronic low-grade inflammation tends to increase with age and contributes to joint discomfort, fatigue, and higher risk for several common conditions. A simple daily cup made with turmeric, ginger, black pepper, and warm water or milk can supply plant compounds that research links to healthier inflammatory signaling. Curcumin from turmeric, gingerols from ginger, and piperine from black pepper work together, especially when the pepper is included to improve absorption. Drink the cup most mornings. Support it with adequate sleep, daily movement, and a plate that includes colorful plants and healthy fats. Results are gradual and realistic rather than dramatic. Check with your doctor if you have specific medical conditions or take certain medications. The key takeaways are straightforward. Consistency matters more than perfection. Culinary amounts of these spices are a practical starting point for most people. The cup is one supportive tool, not a complete solution. Pairing it with sleep and movement multiplies the benefit. And the goal is not to eliminate every sensation of aging, but to reduce the unnecessary background inflammation that makes everyday life harder than it needs to be. You have already taken a meaningful step by spending this time learning about a practical way to support your body. Inflammation is not an enemy you have to defeat in a single battle. It is a process you can influence with daily choices that feel doable. One warm cup each morning is a small act of care that many people over 50 find surprisingly helpful. Start tomorrow if it feels right. Notice how your body responds over the coming weeks. Adjust the amounts until the habit feels sustainable. And remember that taking care of your health at this stage of life is less about chasing youth and more about protecting the strength and comfort that let you keep doing the things that matter to you. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for watching Health Journey.